I will move House File 825 to be laid over for possible inclusion. We now have before us House File 825. Representative Lee, welcome to the committee, and please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Just wanted to preface that, Madam Chair, I just came back from the dentist, and so if I'm not making sense, I apologize for that. I'll be quick and just say thank you all for the committee's support of College Possible in the past, and really allowing for this great program to help assist low-income Minnesota students to really have access and get on the path towards going to college and graduating. And this is personal for me, Madam Chair and members. I myself, a few of my siblings, we went through the program, and I understand the great work that it does. For many of us, just understanding the college application process is quite a task. And then something that I really value about College Possible was helping me find the different resources that could uh, help me finance education and not worry and have that as a barrier for me going forward. And so I'll just leave it at that right now, and hopefully my testifiers will be able to explain a little bit more about the bill and share their perspective. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, Representative Lee, thank you for being here today, and you get extra bonus points and gold stars for being here after being at the dentist. With us today, we have Mr. Jeff Wilson. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Wilson. If you could please state your name and your organization for the record.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, Executive Director at College Possible, Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Chair and esteemed representatives, and thank you, Representative Lee. College Possible programming begins in a student's junior year of high school. Our high school programming focuses on college knowledge, campus visits, ACT prep, college application assistance, FAFSA completion, navigating scholarships and financing college, financial literacy, and the transition from high school into college. One of the unique things about our program is that we continue to support students until they graduate from college. Our college programming focuses on navigating the college landscape and accessing critical resources, understanding the unwritten rules of college, building self-advocacy skills, career readiness, and continued support in FAFSA completion, financing college, and financial literacy. Our results are outstanding. Last year, 99% of College Possible students were accepted into college. And while a recent National Student Clearinghouse report shows the number of 2020 high school graduates enrolling in college in the fall decreased by 22%, driven mostly by losses of lower income and urban high school students, our enrollment actually increased by 4%. And our college graduation rate has steadily increased every year over the last 5 years, with College Possible students 3 times more likely to graduate than their peers from similar economic backgrounds. In a recent survey that we conducted of College Possible program alumni 5 and 10 years out from their college graduation, shows 5-year grads with a median individual income of $40,000 to $59,000, and over a third of 10-year grads with family incomes of $100,000 or more. 98% are employed, 94% have health insurance, and 83% are saving for their retirement. And importantly, over a third reported a debt load of less than $10,000. And on average, all respondents left college with less debt than their non-College Possible peers. Now, the state of Minnesota has been an absolutely critical partner in our growth. With the support of the state, we've grown from working in 24 high schools to 65. And have grown our presence from the Twin Cities metro area to across greater Minnesota, from Worthington to Mount Iron Buell. Your support in building our Navigate program, which is a tech-based and virtually administered version of our program to support students in greater Minnesota, also set us up to weather the pandemic very well. By having all of our curriculum already modified to deliver remotely, and the infrastructure built and refined over the last 6 years, we were able to seamlessly move our entire program to a remote model and achieve the outstanding results that we did this year. And I'll just end my brief portion before turning it over to some other testifiers, that I want to thank you all for your incredible support that you've provided and all that you've made possible for students in Minnesota. So thank you, Madam Chair and esteemed committee members.
Thank you for your testimony. Next with us is Zare Bang. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and organization for the record.
Zura Vang, College Possible board member and program alumni. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and esteemed representatives. Again, my name is Zura Vang, and I am a program alumna as well as a board member. I currently serve as the Director of Student Recruitment for the Morrison Family College of Health at the University of St. Thomas, and am currently pursuing my doctoral studies at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. College Possible has supported me since I was 16 years old with high intensive support with college applications, with financial aid, navigation support, and mental and personal support. I can honestly say that I don't think I would have pursued college or higher education in general without their early support. To give back, I've stayed in touch with College Possible. I've worked for them as a program coordinator and now serve as their board member and also part of the Alumni Leadership Council committee member. I have been able to support hundreds of students who have shared lived experiences as I and have been able to help them see that they too can access and graduate from college. As a board member, I am able to provide feedback and expertise in their programming and their strategic planning. As coming through from a alumni lens, College Possible is really intentional about holding 2 seats on their board for program alumni as they bring in unique perspectives and experiences and expertise. And as a Alumni Leadership Council committee member, we are able to advise College Possible with their work in engaging our program alumni. Being part of such a impactful organization has really influenced my career path. It has led me to work in higher education, working around access and retention, particularly with underrepresented students. It has also influenced my decision to go on to get my Master's of Social Work degree, as well as pursuing my PhD degree. I've never really have imagined myself going to college, let alone pursuing my PhD. And this organization really helped me see that that was possible. I'm also a mother of 2 young children, 4 and 1, and I know that because I've gone to college, I will be able to help support them and get them through that really just stressful and challenging process. We need organizations like College Possible, people who care, people that the organization who is just so results oriented, and an organization that is so committed to leveling the playing ground for low-income students. Thank you so much for your support, and I will end my testimony there.
I think you're on mute, Madam Chair.
There we go. Thank you. I would like to thank you for your testimony, Ms. Zervang, and welcome Tyrese Leverty to the committee. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and organization for the record.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and esteemed representatives. My name is Tyrese Leverty, and I'm a current College Possible student. Once again, please allow me to introduce myself as Tyrese Leverty. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm currently a senior at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, studying journalism, professional strategic communications, art, and interdisciplinary design. Today, I am here with you all to share my student story and to show you all how College Possible shaped my life trajectory and made it possible for me to be the soon-to-be graduate that you see before you today. I grew up in the southern Twin Cities suburbs, moving a total of 6 times before I even reached high school. We were a low-income household led by my late mother, who instilled in me, as you all know, the power and importance of education. She always insisted that I make better than she did, make better choices than she did. That is, as a teen mother, she was not able to complete her own bachelor's degree. And in being that is, she did not have the necessary resources and knowledge to prepare me for higher education on her own. Luckily, Burnsville High School, my alumnus, is a College Possible partner, so driven by the will to complete our family's path to education that was stunted by my arrival to this world, I applied and joined the program leading into my junior year of high school. I stayed after school several nights a week for 2 years, learning, preparing for, and ensuring my journey to higher education. I had the opportunity to study test-taking strategies and take the ACT practice test more times than my financial circumstances would otherwise allow without College Possible. This improved my score and allowed me to become more academically competitive in my college applications. Thanks to the program, I thoroughly researched, visited, and was accepted into many colleges before narrowing it down to the University of Minnesota, which happened to be the same place that my CP coach went. Before I knew, it was time to make the move that I had long been working toward. With my mother's memory and lessons on my mind, I packed up my life and moved from the suburbs to the big city, that being Minneapolis, of course, and began classes at the U. This was a true test of my independence, as unlike my peers, college wasn't the natural next step for me. So when it came to my finances, housing, scheduling classes, I felt like I was all on my own for the first time. That was, of course, until I reached out to my CP mentor, who quickly became my source of stability and support throughout the ever-changing dynamics of college. I'd also been lucky enough to find a community within the crowd and other program students who were facing similar adversities to mine. After all, we all started 6 years ago together, and now, looking back, we're all finishing together 6 years later. Speaking of looking back, it's tough to imagine where or who I would be if not for the College Possible program and the dozens of supportive members by my side every step of the way. Now I am also looking forward to beginning my career in the media and advertising industry this summer, thanks to the education, mentorship, and opportunities that were provided to me by the College Possible program. I share my story now on the College Possible panel for current high school students to inspire them to see that they can achieve anything they put their mind to. And I share it with you all today, carrying the hope that it will help you to see into the life of a current Minnesota Minnesota student in education today. Madam Chair and esteemed representatives, I thank you kindly for hearing my testimony, and I yield my time.
Thank you very much. And we do have our testifier from the last bill, and we will get to her after we're done with this bill. We will allow her to testify before we adjourn. So are there any other testifiers, Representative Lee? I know we have someone on hand to help. Did you want, I'll leave it up to you, Representative, who you would, else you have to testify
I'm
on
sure.
this
I think
bill.
that's all the testifiers that we have.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Excuse me, we have Representative Erickson has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is for Mr. Wilson, the Executive Director. I'm looking at your donor list, and it's very, very generously provided for. And so I'm wondering, what is your budget? And with this kind of generosity from the community and from couples and singles, why is it that we need to infuse state dollars? And I believe this is probably even in the base. Could you comment on that, please?
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you for the question, Representative Erickson. I believe first part of the question, budget, about $5.5 million is our annual budget. It grows in waves a little bit each year, but this year we'll look at about $5.5 million in expenses. And the infusion of state money, really what that has enabled us to do is grow our program aggressively. I mentioned before we started partnering with the state in this work, we were at 24 high schools just in the metro area. And this has allowed us to grow to 65 high schools all across greater Minnesota and add high schools just throughout the entire state and reach more students where we know there has been need. And we feel really honored and privileged to be able to work with many more students in a much larger geographic region because of the support of the state, which has made that possible.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Wilson, this program has been in place since 2000, and I see that 6,200 or so students have been served. So really, why do we need state dollars to be a part of this? Is that for marketing, or just how do those state dollars help complete this this program that gets students into college?
Absolutely.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for your question again, Representative Erickson. I think if it's okay, I'll answer part of it, and then I would like to let my colleague Kumar Balasubramanian, who's with me, who might be able to add a little bit of context to it. So the 6,200 students that you're seeing, that's in this is currently served. So over the 20 years of our existence, we've served many, many more than that. And so again, that 6,200 number is active in the College Possible program right now, both in high school and college. It's roughly broken down by currently 2,000 high school students and 4,000 college students that we're supporting in Minnesota. And I really, again, I think the state support here is what really has helped us and continues to support us to expand that work throughout the entire state into greater Minnesota and to reach more students in all across the state. But I would like to share some time with my colleague Kumar, who might be able to add a little bit of context to that, as well as he's done a lot of work in this area.
Welcome to the committee, Kumar Balasubramanian. Thank you. Hopefully I got that fairly close. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for the record and your organization.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Kumar Balasubramanian. I am the Director of Community Partnerships and Engagement at College Possible Minnesota. Yeah, and thank you, Representative Erickson. I think that's an important question. In our reporting for the use of these funds each year, we pick a specific group of students. We call it our state appropriation cohort. So we have a group of about over 1,000 students who are directly funded by this work. And as Mr. Wilson mentioned, that growth was allowed by this funding. So, as an organization, one thing that I think we feel confident is, based on our numbers, 98% of our students got accepted into college last year, but there's lots of students who don't have that same level of mentorship or support throughout the state. And in particular, rural poverty is a really real thing. And what we found when talking to our partners throughout the state was that the resources weren't as centrally located. In a smaller community, they might not have access to the same level of resources. And we really wanted to be able to take our expertise and spread it to all different parts of the state as much as possible. And so from my perspective, the reason that the state funding is so valuable is not only that it helps us expand sort of our reach, but also that it helps us dig into communities that we might not otherwise be able to touch. One other thing that I think is important to note, just sort of generally about the programming, is the continuation piece. So, there's not very many programs out there that follow their students all the way through graduation and even beyond graduation, touching into our alumni networks. And as those are folks who are throughout the state and professionals throughout the state, this funding makes a really big difference in our ability to sort of keep that pipeline from high school all the way to career very strong.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Wilson, back to you. So if the state were not to infuse this, well, the governor's asking for $550,000 each of the years of the biennium, would the donations dry up, or would they increase? I mean, it's always interesting because it seems to me that when I'm out and about, folks talk about wanting to be generous, giving to a program that they know is going to succeed because they're an integral part of it. But when the state then gets involved, it's like they pull back and say, well, the state of Minnesota is going to put in that, then I guess I won't put in as much. So, donations, I think, are dictated by the extent to which an organization like College Possible can make it on its own. I mean, I'm just asking these questions because I'm curious. It's not that I probably don't support the program, but I'm always curious about to what extent do people pull back their donations when they know the state of Minnesota is going to put dollars in. If you would just respond to that, thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you, Representative Erickson, for your question. If I may, I'll just touch on one thing from the previous question that I don't think I or Kumar addressed, which was, I think you asked, how does that money get spent and is it marketing or whatever? Most of our money, almost 90% of it goes right into student programming. It's either for the staffing that it takes because we're such an intensive program and students get a lot of one-on-one mentoring. Most of the money goes into either the staffing cost to do that or the direct materials that we need for students. So almost all of it goes into direct programming. So that's how the money is spent, generally speaking. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have very generous donors. I think the community that we're in believe in the programming and want to be a part of it and see the value that it provides and are generous with their support. What I have observed in my conversations with donors, I spend a lot of my time fundraising, so I'm talking to donors quite frequently. And I think one of the things that I have observed with our donors anyway, in terms of their thinking about our relationship and state funding, is it gives them even more confidence. I think when they see that the state is investing in this and well, they see it as an opportunity to really engage in a public-private partnership and utilize all the resources so that we can reach as many students as possible, knowing that the need still outweighs our ability to serve students and the resources that we have. I mean, right, I guess nobody has a crystal ball, but if the state money were not to come in, I would not see, I think that would pose a challenge for us to continue our work in Greater Minnesota because it is such an integral part of that work. And I see the support of the state as making that, again, that growth possible and allowing us to reach beyond what we have been able to reach historically. But overall speaking, I think the beauty of, when I look at our revenue stream to meet our expenses, what gives me confidence in what I am excited about is the diversification of individual revenue, corporate revenue, foundation revenue, state revenue, and that there are a lot of different people partnering to make the work possible at this scale.
Madam Chair.
Representative Erickson.
One last question, Mr. Wilson. So what's the demographic? Because I know these are low income students, and I'm so glad that they can get this kind of counseling, this kind of support, because that is really important when they don't maybe understand the path that you have to take to get admitted to a college and then to succeed in college. I read at least one of the success stories in the report and found that just really amazing. But what's the demographic other than low income? Is there a diverse range of ethnicities, for example?
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you, Representative Erickson, for your great question. Yes, so as you mentioned, all the students in our program would qualify as low income. The demographic, there's a few ways we look at it. One is just sort of generally speaking, about 90% roughly are students of color. And I will say I don't have these numbers right in front of me, and we'd be happy to follow up with the exact demographic breakdown, but I'll be close. I can give you a general idea of the breakdown. So about 90% students of color, about 90% as well will be the first in their families to go to college. And then the breakdowns, it's around 30% Black African American, about upper 20% Latinx, about mid 20s to 30% Hmong and Asian, and then I want to say this is one where I'm not exactly sure. It's about 10 to 15% white, and then there's some other kind of 1 to 2% in some other groups. I want to just be really clear. That is, I don't have those numbers in front of me, so that's close. So don't quote me on that, and we would be happy to follow up with the exact demographic breakdown of our current cohort of students following the hearing.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. I think this has been very important for us to learn about this program. I'm a newcomer to this committee, so I'm curious, but I like what you've told us in regard to the demographic. That's very important, and the fact that these are low income young people who we want to succeed, and college is possible for them. Thank you very much.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions as well. So I spent quite a bit of my career working in nonprofits. And so if I was to look at your most recent 990 filing, I'm wondering if you could tell me what is your percentage for administration, fundraising, and programming? So what do you remember what your percentage is in each of those? And the reason I ask is because you had said about 90% of this money goes directly into the programming. So that is a bit problematic because here at the state, when we do things, we typically supply, we allocate about 5%, usually not much more than that. There are specific instances and reasons why we might do more than a 5% administrative allocation to a state agency to administrate a program. And so just by your quick, and maybe you were not being very specific on your percentage, but if it is only 90% going to direct programming, well, that may sound good. That's actually a bit higher than we would allow here at the state. So I'm wondering if you could tell us what your administration, fundraising, and programming breakdowns are for your most recent 990. And then I do, just to make it quick, I also have a quick question for the author of the bill, wondering what year that the state funding started. So I know that College Possible has been around since 2000, but what year did they start receiving state funding? And the final question I have, again, to the author is, you're asking to more than double their current appropriation, and I'm wondering why it's such a big jump. Can you talk about how many more students that you would be able to serve, or what is the reason for the appropriation? Even it's just a little bit more than double. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we have two questions from Representative O'Neill, and the first one is for Mr. Wilson, and then we'll take Representative Lee's. Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative O'Neill, for your great question. Yeah, I don't have the exact 990 in front of me, and I won't be able to tell you right now the exact, to the percent, or 0.% of exactly the administration, fundraising, programming breakdown. Again, we're happy to get that, and we can follow up and make sure we get that exact breakdown into the hands of the committee so you can see it and take a look at that. What I will say is, when we've looked at our comparison to sort of industry standards for the breakdown and what a nonprofit would be spending in terms of direct program support versus administration and fundraising, we're right in line with the industry standard, and in fact, I think outperform in many areas, in comparison to many other programs. So it's around that. It's a very high percentage. I think comparatively to the industry standard. And a number that, as I've talked with donors who are giving to the organization, are quite comfortable with. And so to get you the exact numbers, we'll follow up in whatever the right mechanism is to make sure that you can take a close look at exactly what that breakdown is.
Okay, Representative Lee, are you able to answer that last question? Remember what it was?
Madam Chair and Representative O'Neill, I will have to defer to College Possible to talk about when they first received funding. I know that last biennium, Representative Vane was a member of the Higher Ed Committee, and she carried the bill for them. And I would say that, as not a recipient, but as somebody that went through the program, I really see the value in this, and supporting some of those students that Representative Erickson have mentioned. Some of our lowest income Minnesotans, some of them are first generation, just like myself. And so that's why, for me, as a member of the legislature, I feel like this is a priority for myself, and that we should, have really consider this as we move forward, and really making sure that students, regardless of where they're from and their background, if they are meeting some of these eligibility, being some of the lowest income Minnesotans, that they have the opportunity to pursue higher education. And so to the direct question, I will refer back to College Possible.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative O'Neill, again for your question. I'm not going to have the exact date for when we first received state funding. My colleague Kumar may have, I wasn't in the Minnesota office. I worked in our national office before I moved to our Minnesota site. So when we first started state funding, I wasn't in the Minnesota site. It was, my guess is probably about, let's see, about 5 to 6 years ago. So when I mentioned in my testimony that we launched our, what is now called our Navigate program, which is the virtual version of our program that we use to deliver our curriculum all throughout greater Minnesota, the state was very instrumental in helping to make that possible. And we're in our 6th year of that. So I believe that it was right about that time when we first started receiving money from the state. So I'd say about 6 years ago. But that's another thing I'm happy to follow up with on the exact timeline of that, so you can see exactly when that funding began. And then Kumar, I don't know if you have anything, just because you've been in the Minnesota site a bit longer than I have, if there's something different that you'd want to add to that.
Mr. Balasubramanian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative O'Neill. Yes, I believe that 2016 was the first year that we started receiving funding through the Office of Higher Education. And the steady growth in funding has been a direct sort of result of more students being served. So with our, I believe in 2018, our funding was lower, and when we doubled, we were able to support double the amount of students. So we initially had been reporting on 600 students that were funded directly from this programming. And in our last 2 years in the last budget, we were reporting on 1,200 students. So that money is sort of directly tied to more students being supported by these funds.
Okay, Representative O'Neill, I'm assuming that we got your 2 questions answered. And
Madam Chair, actually, I need a follow-up now that I got the answer.
And we'll need to we'll need to like about a minute for that, and we can come back if we need to. We have other members that would like to ask questions, and we'll need to move on and have about
Madam
5
Chair?
minutes for each member. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I know that we have a House fiscal staff here too, Mr. Savory, if he could look into that and provide that information so that we're not, going back and forth with College Possible. I think that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And did you have a question that you wanted that could take a minute, or would you want to come back to Representative O'Neill?
I just have a very short thing.
Okay, go ahead, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my suggestion is that we do what we do with many grant programs, and that is to put language in that would limit the administrative cost to 5% of this program. So I would ask the author if he would include that language like we do in nearly every grant program, which is to limit how much money can be spent on administrating the program. And then I also would like a report back to the legislature, some language, so a report back as to how the funds were used and how many students were served, and a copy of the most recent 990, if they could include that. Thank you.
Okay, Representative O'Neill, the bill is going to be laid over, so thank you for your remarks. We will take note to that. Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Lee, for allowing this bill to be heard today. I've heard a lot of conversation about the costs of the program, and that's something that we always want to be attentive to. But in listening to Mr. Leverty and Ms. Bang, there are so many benefits. I mean, the thing that we are not talking about today is that if you have a high school diploma, and these are averages, I know there are exceptions to every statement that we make. The national averages, if you have a high school diploma, you'll earn about $30,000 to $35,000, and if you have a bachelor's degree, you will earn $65,000, $60,000 to $65,000. Now, these are averages in different degrees, right? So to lift people up to be able to have wages that can truly support your 2 children, Ms. Bang, is really critical. To lift people out of that lower socioeconomic rung and help build generational wealth for families to come is an exponential value that I'm not hearing discussed in this conversation, but it's really critical. The other piece, when we talk about how we maximize the benefit of state dollars, what I'm hearing in the conversation that Mr. Wilson and, excuse me, Kumar, I'll use your first name, are talking about is the fact that they can use this state investment and leverage it for many, many more dollars. And that is a very positive ripple effect that we can use to benefit all of our students and help them complete college so that they are not accruing massive debt without a result at the end of their time. And I'm hearing that your students, if I heard the testimony correct, are coming out with lower debt. And I'm assuming when you help them get into college, you also help them apply for every possible grant that they could qualify for and scholarship that they could qualify for. So that, as I'm listening to the services that you provide, I'm thinking we should probably be expanding this into the middle class as well to help people deal with that. How do you maximize your dollar in college? The other piece that I'm not hearing in this conversation today is that if you, and we've seen this in COVID, right? If you have a bachelor's degree, you're more likely to be able to work from home and be able to ride out these this pandemic or other economic stresses that we have. Whereas if you remain at the lower socioeconomic level, your unemployment rate is much higher. So these are benefits of the program that I think we also need to be having in the debate today about the value of this bill, which I do support representatively. And then the other side of it is, without this investment in our families, what would be the opportunities and the brain power that we as a state are losing, right? We're not capturing the full value of the person who would maybe otherwise not be educated. So I think it's a bigger conversation than just, okay, what is this number on this spreadsheet? There is an intrinsic value to the dignity of the individuals who are being ushered through the process, and then the full life cycle of that individual and how they have been lifted up out of poverty. So thank you, Representative Lee, and for your testifiers for coming today.
Representative Sandell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to each of the testifiers. I've been involved with College Possible for a number of years and have written recommendations for young men and women who have participated. I am concerned a little bit about the work that seems to be duplicated, I guess, with a lot of programs. Most programs, however, provide their services to young men and women who are sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school, rather than try to support and mentor them through college. You mentioned that you have about 1,200 students that you've been working with this year, and I wonder what services you offer them while they are in college and help them to graduate. Could you tell me a little bit about that, Mr. Wilson, please?
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. I will actually, if it's okay, kick the beginning of this question to my colleague Kumar, who has worked for years directly on the program team. And then Kumar, when you're done, if there's other things to add, I'll be happy to jump back in. But Kumar's been directly in that for quite some time. So we'll, Kumar, if you want to take this one.
Mr. Balu Subramanian. Well, please proceed.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. Yeah, so I do think one of the really unique components of our work is our work with college students. And unlike high school students where it's a little bit linear, the college path sort of goes all over the place. And so our college curriculum is designed more on specific types of support that a student might need. Some of them are more common to happen in their freshman year or more common to happen in their senior year, but each student is on their own individual path. And so our coaches are equipped to, let's say the situation is financial. The student has a hold because they didn't pay their academic or their balance, their financial balance. And so they have a hold on registering for their classes next year. Our coaches are equipped to help support that student to identify all of the opportunities that exist to help with that funding, whether it's connecting with the financial aid office of that college, whether it's seeking outside scholarships, or whether it's working more with the FAFSA or other loan providers to make sure that they're able to connect with their college process. So finances are one really big part of the process. Another really key element is the social aspect of college. Students heading off to college, many of those colleges being primarily white institutions, and the majority of our students being students of color, there is often a sense of imposter syndrome or challenges making connections on a college campus. And our coaches are equipped to help make sure that our students know about the student groups that exist there to support them, to make sure that they're connecting with their academic advisor, to make sure that they're talking to their professors, to make sure that they know all the different ways that they can get engaged on their college campus to feel a part of that community. Academics are another really critical component of our college curriculum. And it's not that we provide direct tutoring or support for students. That's not really our focus. Really what we do is serve as a connector on that college campus. There are tons of resources that every college have that often go underutilized by all students, and particularly for students who come from underrepresented backgrounds who might not be encouraged to seek out those resources by other folks in their community simply because they just don't know that they exist. That's where our coaches step in. They say, hey, you're really struggling on your English course. Let's connect you to the Writing Center to make sure that you have a tutor on your campus to support you. And oftentimes that looks like making that connection for a student. Asking for help can be really, really challenging, especially at that collegiate level where you sort of have this expectation that I'm an adult now, I'm independent, I shouldn't need help. And a big role that our coaches play is help be that connector and let them know it's important to ask for help, and here's who you can ask that help directly to. There's a lot of, I can talk about this for a really long time because I'm super passionate about it, but I'll say one thing that we've been really focused on recently is our career readiness, right? So college graduation is the end goal for our programming, but it's not the end goal for our students. Our students are using that college experience to leverage that for a career that is financially sustainable and also is something that they care about as well. And so we've dove really deep into how do we prepare our students for the workforce. So this year we've had a number of virtual events, including an internships workshop, an alumni panel where we had students sort of similar to Representative Lee and Zervang come back to say, hey, here's where I am now after graduating college, and here's the path that I took to get there. Let me answer your questions about the industry that you're most interested in. So that is a big part of our college programming and the things that we focus on. And we really do try to individualize it for each student. The last thing I would mention is that 100% of the funding from the Office of Higher Education goes directly to our program. So just so you all know, not a single dollar from the state goes to our administrative costs. While we do have administrative costs, we do not use any of the Office of Higher Ed funding to do that.
Okay, thank you. We are now going to move on to Representative Albright. You have like 3 minutes, and we'll move to Representative Mason so that we can get to our testifier from the other one. So Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief in my comments and I'll be directed to the author of the bill. Representative Lee, the first point that I would articulate is one Representative O'Neill brought up in the conversation and the line of questioning that she posed. And I will reference back to Representative Knorr's bill that we just heard before your introduction. And it's interesting that in his bill, he does include language that limits the administrative fees in his program, or the one that he's proposing, to 3%. So I don't think that it's out of line for Representative O'Neill to suggest that, and I would certainly hope that you take that under strong consideration. Representative Lee, looking more for your response to a couple of comments or observations that I would make. But I think it's somewhat interesting that the program that you espouse, that you propose in this bill, really is an extension of that which should be already happening, whether it be in the high school or in this setting, the secondary or higher educational programs, in support of career counseling, in support of and we spend an awful lot of time in this committee talking about the funding that we provide to higher ed, whether it be independent colleges, the MINSCU system, or the University of Minnesota. So in that situation, isn't it a bit of a sad indictment that that's not already happening in those institutions, and we have to curry the favor or support and or supplant the funding that we should be putting towards those programs to support a nonprofit of this nature. And that's not anything against this organization. It sounds like they do great work, but I would like for your feedback on that. And to finally, Representative Lee, if you could just speak to the fact that if this is in fact a venerable program, there obviously must be other systems out there and other entities out there that support a similar focus. And so what would you say to the support of making this program a competitive grant program as opposed to a unilateral support of one mission entity? And I'll conclude there and wait for Representative Lee's response. Thank you.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. And I think to the last piece, I was thoroughly entertained the option, if there are other programs that are similar like this, for them to come forward, so that we as the legislature have the opportunity to engage in this conversation. And as the chief author of this bill, I haven't really heard from any other entity that are doing similar work. And so hopefully the chair and the committee, if you are hearing, if there are other proposals, that you will consider that. And to the first questions around putting a cap, I think that's certainly something that we could explore. And Chair Bernardi have said that the bill is being laid over, and that she is taking note as the chair. And so I will work with the chair and Representative O'Neill and any other members of the committee who are interested in this. And to the second question, thank you for the question, Representative Albright. I think that that's a discussion that we as the legislature should certainly talk about. What can we do to provide the resources for our schools, and so that they could actually carry out that mission of really preparing all of our students, so that they don't have to worry about not having the connection, or because of my financial situation, similar to the experience of my siblings, myself, that we don't think that higher education is something that's for us, unless it was like through it was for programs like College Possible that made it possible for me to dream beyond just that high school graduation and get into the workforce, and really see that higher education. Ms. Vang have said that too, that that's something that we can aspire to. And I'm glad to see Mr. Leverty here to talk about his own experience and how this is opening a door for him to really look into a different career path that maybe Mr. Leverty and Ms. Vang might share similar sentiment with me, when I was growing up, that I'm going to get my high school graduation, my diploma, and then start working right away just to support my family. And fortunately for me, I'm able to pursue higher education, and here am I at the legislature and working with all of you. And so I think that's definitely a conversation that the Higher Education Committee and the E12 committee should have going forward. And so thank you for the question, Representative Albright.
Representative Mason, and you have like 3 minutes. I'd like to get on to have Representative Lee wrap up, and then move on to our testifier, give her 3 minutes to testify. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments, and especially something that Representative Lee had said before. When you're the first person in your family to go to college, that means you're coming from and I'm gross assumption here, but my guess is probably most of your background are other people that have not gone to college as well. And I remember talking with my roommate years after we graduated, thinking how lucky kids were now to have all these various programs and opportunities. And her comment was, well, we were both first people to go to college from our families, so we didn't have the background or the help to really take advantage of some of the opportunities that might have been there. So it's really refreshing to know that that students now are getting the extra counseling that will help them maximize the opportunities that they have when they go into college or get into higher education. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lee, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, and Representative Mason, thank you for that too. And I'll just share that, for me, when I was growing up in North Minneapolis, the only way that I saw an opportunity for me to go into higher education was if I get a scholarship for sports. And knowing that, I'm not very athletic, I thought that I won't be able to pursue higher education. And College Possible made it happen for me and for four of my siblings. Two of my older sisters are, they have attained their graduate degree, and two of my other siblings, like myself, we have our undergraduate degree. We're the first one in my family to, get into higher education, and this has opened the door for a lot of my nieces and nephews to even to start thinking about the possibility for them. And this is a generational impact that we're making here. The investment that we're putting into this program. And so, just want to say thank you all to our testifiers, especially Ms. Vane, Ms. Leverty, for coming by to share their experience. And Madam Chair, hopefully all of you will consider this proposal going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lee, for your bill and working to create opportunities for young people and help them be successful. Really appreciate your testimony today and all the testifiers. Thank you very much. And with that, with no further discussion, I will renew my motion that House File 825 be laid over for possible inclusion in the Higher Education Finance Omnibus Bill. The bill is laid over.